Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. I'm Chelsea. You know that, I know that. I'm just a lady with a bulldog, a camera, and too many opinions. And today we are going to talk about the cult crafting conglomerate Hobby Lobby. Let's start off this video with a little game, shall we? We're going to play two truths and a lie. Side note, yes, that's my bulldog snoring. He's laying at my feet. He do be snoring. It's not your refrigerator. It's my bulldog. Maybe you'll see him later in this video if you stick around. But I'm going to read 3 statements and you're going to tell me which one you think is the lie. So let's get started, shall we? Number 1, the owners of Hobby Lobby supported terrorist groups by illegally smuggling over 5,000 artifacts from the Middle East to be showcased in the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. And then number 2, during the pandemic, while the entire world was closed down and everyone was taking preventative measures, God spoke directly to the owners of Hobby Lobby and said, nope, these stores shall not be closed, and they remained open. And then number 3, the Supreme Court ruled that Hobby Lobby needed to provide insurance coverage for their employees who were seeking birth control. I'll give you a second. Leave a comment below with the number 1 if you think it was supporting terrorists and smuggling artifacts illegally, or a 2 if you think it was the flying spaghetti monster, whatever God you believe in, saying, hey, schmovid, COVID who? We don't know her, stay open. Or a 3 if you think it was them being forced to provide insurance coverage for birth control seeking employees. I'll give you a second. Hi y'all, here on my channel, we are not unfamiliar with people who are unhinged and their unhinged opinions. And you know, and I know, it's basically the equivalent to our trashy TV. It's really entertaining. But unfortunately, for some of us, we have people like that in our personal lives, and it can be pretty hard to deal with. Many of you are familiar with my crazy Uncle Reggie. Thanks to today's sponsor, Uncle Reggie has been a little bit less crazy. And that sponsor is Ground News. Ground News is my go-to news platform developed by female former NASA engineer Harleen Kaur to give readers an easy, data-driven way to keep up with the news. The app gathers related articles from thousands of sources around the world, allowing me to easily compare how different outlets cover the exact same story, and gives context on the source of each of those publications. For instance, speaking of the algorithm gods, a recent study discovered that Twitter, also known as X, their algorithm changed in July to boost right-wing accounts. Ground News found over 20 news outlets covering this story. 50% were left-leaning, while 33% were leaning right, and then obviously the difference being center-leaning. Below that, you can see the factuality breakdown, which of course is my absolute favorite aspect, as well as ownership, which obviously that's very important. 50% of reporting outlets are independently owned, like this headline from The Verge that reveals X's algorithm now loves 2 things: Republicans and Elon Musk. Y'all know we love independent journalism over here, and I of course do think it's important to consider the source, as I say a lot on my channel. And we should question everything and research everything. However, we don't need to put our tinfoil hat on just yet. Keep it in arm's reach, but like we don't need to put it on yet. Instead, you can go to ground.news/cc or click the link in my description box. And if you sign up through that link, you will actually receive their limited time offer of 50% off of their Vantage plan, which is the one that I use. And that gives you unlimited access to all of their amazing features. So thank you again to Ground News for sponsoring this video and being a continued sponsor of my channel. Now back to the video. Okay. Let me just take a sip first. If you type number 3, you're right, baby. And we'll get into that more in a second, but it was brought to the Supreme Court that they needed to, or rather that they should be, providing insurance coverage for their employees who were seeking birth control. But unfortunately, the Supreme Court sided with Hobby Lobby, saying that they don't need to provide insurance coverage for employees seeking birth control. Again, we'll get into that in a moment. Now, as you can tell from the little game that we just played and the 2 truths of that, and the lie really, we're going to be talking about Hobby Lobby, the craft store staple itself, many people's happy place, and their unhinged evangelical Christian owners, and some of their reportedly, allegedly dubious and diabolical behavior. So let's first go over how Hobby Lobby came to be and learn a little bit more about their owners. In 1972, David and Barbara Green took out a $600 loan and began making miniature picture frames out of their home. Within 2 years, they opened a 300 square foot store in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and named it Hobby Lobby. The Greens have made it abundantly clear through their core values that their religious beliefs would play a very large role in how the company would be run. As stated on their website, core values from the beginning. The company's core values have formed a foundation to guide decision-making, establish corporate culture, and determine how business is conducted. Hobby Lobby's values include honoring the Lord in all we do by operating in a manner consistent with biblical principles, offering customers exceptional selection and value, serving our employees and their families by establishing a work environment and company policies that build character, strengthen individuals, and nurture families, and providing a return on the family's investment, sharing the Lord's blessings with our employees, and investing in our community. While retail strategies change, Hobby Lobby's core values remain. These values led to the decision to close all stores on Sundays, allowing associates time for family and for worship. They were also instrumental in the decision to give store employees pay raises well above the national minimum wage. Now, apparently the Greens are so close to God, or their God rather, that they spoke directly to him. He spoke directly to them. Anyways, one of those hymns has a capital H. Okay, you get it. They were hearing voices. During the pandemic, I'm sure they constantly hear voices, but they were hearing voices during the pandemic saying that they should not close down their stores and they should remain open.
Guys, it may be difficult to find bare essentials during these scary times, but if you need arts and craft supplies, don't worry. Our good friends over at Hobby Lobby have you covered. You see, while most businesses are making the self-sacrificing decision to close their doors during these trying times, our good Christian friends over at Hobby Lobby are staying open during the entire time, because the CEO's wife had a dream where God told her that was going to be a good idea. So good news, if you need supplies to bedazzle your loved one's coffin, Hobby Lobby. If you need some cute little jars so each one of your family members can have their own bit of grandma's ashes to take home, Hobby Lobby.
And what was the fallout of that, you might ask?
Hobby Lobby is an evil corporation run by a Sith Lord lizard man. So I told you guys, the CEO's wife received a message from God, so Hobby Lobby is staying open through the entire pandemic, and you'd think with a net worth of $6 billion they'd hook their employees up, but nope, they're those Christians. So what do you do if you're a godly Christian man worth $6 billion and your employees get sick as you're forcing them to work through a pandemic? Well, obviously you force them to use their own vacation pay, and if they run out of that, they're figgity. If Hobby Lobby is forced to shut down, the employees will only receive emergency pay after all their vacation time is used. But they don't have to worry about that because they're only going to shut down if the National Guard comes in and physically shuts the buildings down. This is David Green, the billionaire that can't afford to take care of his employees if they get sick while working through a pandemic, and he also looks like he's about to try and take over the galaxy and electrocute you with this force lightning. That's why he's reaching into that sleeve. He forgot he wasn't wearing his Sith robes, and he's trying to get to that red lightsaber.
Now, eventually, Hobby Lobby did close their stores during the pandemic. Maybe it was because the Greens, who are worth an estimated $6 billion with a B, $billion, got another message from God. Maybe he was like, hey guys, you know what? I changed my mind. Of course not. Of course not. It was a business decision. Per Business Insider, Hobby Lobby is closing all stores and furloughing, quote, nearly all employees after it defied stay-at-home orders by quietly reopening locations all around the nation. Now, instead of following actual biblical advice of taking care of those in need, they furloughed their employees, which means that they placed them on unpaid leave. Now, I do just want to make it clear, a lot of companies did this during the initial closures and shutdowns and all of that. So like for the first half of 2020. So I get it. And not only did it make more like business sense for the actual company itself, because it's like, hey, we can't continue to pay you. Like we can't. Okay. Because no one's coming in, right? Everyone else is closed. No one else has money either. Now, I do just want to make it clear. Yes, I know I feel like most companies did this during the first like half of the second quarter, Q2 in 2020. So one reason why a lot of companies did that, obviously, yes, makes more sense for them financially. But then also if you're furloughed without pay, then you are able to get unemployment benefits and like the max unemployment benefits for your state as well, which Florida's is super low. I know some other states are super low, but I did just want to enter that little bit of context there too. But still, it's annoying that they're like, God told us to. And then it's like, hey, no, no. I might like Jesus. I might like God. That's a 1v1 relationship. I don't need anyone else included in it. I'm not trying to get you to join anything. No, thank you. That's none of your business. Girlfriend, that's hardly any of my business, okay? I'm also not hearing voices. So I'm not a biblical scholar, and I'm not here to say that all Christianity is a cult, all Christians are horrible people. No. My grandparents were some of the absolute best Christians I've ever met in my life. RIP, Jane and Bill, they're the best people in the world. And they were so accepting, so sweet, so caring, so empathetic, and just the sweetest people ever, and just the most kind and funny and just great. I also know Christians who are quite literally some of the worst people I've ever met in my life. It's awful. I hate it. But again, not all religion is a cult. You can try to say that it is. You're wrong. Factually, that's wrong. It's okay. You can have your opinion there, but hey, it's wrong. However, these people suck. The people that practice religions, any type of religion like this, it's wrong and it's a cult and it's not okay. And it's very harmful to not only the people who are in it, but the people who are outside of it as well, especially when they have billions of dollars. So I'm pretty sure there is a, verse or two about taking care of your people, taking care of people during hard times and things like that. And as you wish that others would do to you, do unto them. James 5:4, behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you keep track by fraud, are crying out against you. And the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. Proverbs 3:27, do not withhold good from those whom it is due when it is in your power to do it. Like when you have $1 billion. And then here's a bunch more that I'm not going to read because guess what? I'm dyslexic. I can hardly read, okay? Hobby Lobby must have a little clearance event going on for red flags because honoring the Lord by operating in a manner that aligns with biblical principles really sounds like I'm going to pick and choose which ones work for me. Oh my gosh. Like when some Christian cult people are like, oh, that's too worldly. Like that's too blah, blah, blah. Modern science isn't okay. Ma'am, you're typing this on an iPhone. You're typing this on an iPhone. Like, where's the line? What are you doing? The point, way over your head. It's back there. You don't know her. Some of y'all might be like, Chelsea, it's a craft store. It's not a cult. Sit tight and listen up. Because as this family-owned business grew, so did their influence within the Christian evangelical conservative realm. For example, as reported by I Do Reckon, Hobby Lobby owners gave millions to IBLP and its founder, Bill Gothard, and still donates to other major conservative Christian organizations. So why does that matter? Listen, you watch my channel, you know why it matters. IBLP, girl, that's a cult. The Duggars, the Baird Mershon family, Girl Defined, all them. IBLP, all the ones who are like, oh, it's the little umbrella. It's God and then your husband and then you and then your kids. You have to submit constantly. Don't want to have another baby? Too bad. Your husband wants to boink and you sure as heck can't be on a pill or pull out. That sounds awful. And these types of instances, these types of situations, these types of standards in a marriage and structure in a marriage are what these people are supporting since they are supporting Bill Gothard. And Bill Gothard is the leader of this IBLP cult. And he's the one who has had so many 20-somethings teenagers come out reportedly saying that he is a sexual pervert and that he's disgraced and he preyed on people and groomed them, allegedly, reportedly. I don't know that for a fact. Listen, I'm saying that because I don't want to get sued. I probably will. It's fine. The ultra-conservative Christian organization and its leader preached male superiority and female obedience, stressing that women should submit and obey to their husbands under all circumstances. The group is known for their Quiverfull movement beliefs, which boils down to not using contraceptive because God will give them the exact number of children he desires. The Duggar family is one of the most well-known families to follow and openly praise Bill Gothard and the IBLP. The family attended many of their annual gatherings and sent their boys to their cosplaying right-wing militia summer camps while their girls were groomed by Bill Gothard, reportedly, allegedly. Eventually, the Duggars, who also fell from grace after the world found out that they were covering up multiple times their eldest son's crimes of sexually assaulting his sisters and a family babysitter, stopped their public support of Bill Gothard. However, Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar, as many of the Fundy Snark Reddit community knows, still support the IBLP. Bill Gothard and the IBLP beliefs are closely aligned with toxic patriarchy, treating women as property, and white supremacy. How would Hobby Lobby ever support such a dangerous trash box of a human and disgusting organization? They reckon that the Green family, particularly the company's founder and their children, have all used their wealth to fund various conservative causes, religious organizations, and politicians who align with their beliefs. By leveraging their resources, Hobby Lobby has become a powerful force in financing campaigns and influencing elections. Gross. In addition to donating to Bill Gothard and the IBLP, Hobby Lobby donates millions of dollars annually to the National Christian Foundation, a nonprofit organization where donors can anonymously funnel money to nearly 24 anti-LGBT and anti-Muslim hate groups. Also, as reported by Alex Koch for Sludge magazine, from 2015 to 2017, NCF, National Christian Foundation, donated $56.1 million on behalf of its clients to 23 nonprofits identified by the Southern Poverty Law Center as hate groups. A Reddit user in the crochet community summed up Hobby Lobby's donation history by stating, "You don't have to look very hard to find plenty of information showing that Hobby Lobby spends millions of dollars annually to political groups and people that are fighting against equality and seeking to further marginalize and oppress the LGBTQ community." Now, if it smells like white supremacy, patriarchy, and the consistent oppression of marginalized groups, it probably is patriarchy, white supremacy, and the oppression of marginalized groups. Now, as I mentioned in our little fun, spicy game at the beginning of this video, Hobby Lobby owners spent quite a lot of cold hard cash, multi-millions of dollars, illegally smuggling artifacts from the Middle East. Now, how in the world did the Greens get involved with a terrorist group that smuggled these artifacts over? Don't y'all love Bush? Didn't y'all get all boned up when he said, I can't do a George Bush impression, George W. Bush, but that we do not negotiate with terrorists? Remember when he got a shoe thrown at him and then someone said, what do you have to say about that? And he goes, it was a size 9. Iconic. One of the only good things there. Oh, poor guy. In addition to owning Hobby Lobby, the Greens also own the Museum of the Bible. They were desperate to get their hands on ancient artifacts from early Christianity to prove that the Bible is historically accurate text. So in 2009, in order to support their beliefs, they purchased thousands of Iraqi artifacts from dealers located in the UAE, United Arab Emirates. Artifacts like the ones purchased by the Greens typically come with documentation providing proof or history of ownership. Turns out the Greens didn't always receive or file the proper documentation, nor did they care, even after being warned by their own employees. Now, some of those artifacts were shipped over to the US with paperwork and information saying that it was just tile, instead of stating that it was like historical ancient pieces of history that were, stolen. Upon further investigation, though, it turns out that these items, mostly all of them possibly, were actually looted from the Museum of Iraq after the United States went in there in 2003. And then those items were then sold on the black market, with the funds received going to some dubious characters and smugglers and terrorist organizations.
They're also coming from a part of the world where conflict antiquities are being actually excavated by groups like Daesh or ISIS, and knowingly being exported and used as a means for funding terrorism. And so there are quite a few red flags that they should have known, and at a minimum, they should have done provenance research, what they didn't do. What they actually did is paid 5 individuals through 7 different accounts. And as I said, then shipped these in different packets, which that might be understandable, but to several different locations in the United States, and without the appropriate or accurate shipping records.
I just feel like we need to revisit the fact that the family that owns Hobby Lobby stole ancient artifacts. Well, they didn't steal them. They bought stolen artifacts from Iraq. All for their museum called the Museum of the Bible. You know, the same Bible that teaches not to steal. And you may be wondering, maybe they didn't know that they were stolen. No. They purposefully mislabeled where the items were coming from. Didn't work. They got caught.
Now, the Greens should have listened to their legal team's warnings, because just 2 years later, in 2011, customs agents actually seized several shipments that they had gotten from the Middle East. And then because of that, that actually led to the federal civil forfeiture of basically Hobby Lobby agreeing to give over a lot of artifacts and over $3 million.
The good old US of A just returned a 3,600-year-old artifact to Iraq. The Gilgamesh Dream Tablet is one of the world's oldest literary works and was looted during the Gulf War. The astonishing Gilgamesh is kind of like a superhero, only I'm talking BC, not DC. The story on the tablet is about his mystical mother interpreting his dreams and a sexual encounter at a shepherd's camp. Yeah, viewer discretion is advised. The tablet was actually owned by Hobby Lobby. Those Jesus-loving craft enthusiasts were fined millions of dollars for having thousands of stolen Iraqi artifacts. They are now part of the 17,000 antiquities that the United States is returning.
Now, as noted in the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement website, ICE returned thousands of ancient artifacts seized from Hobby Lobby to Iraq. Also quoted from ICE, on behalf of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and thanks to the hard work of the Office of the Special Agent in Charge in New York, it is a great honor for me to return many priceless cultural artifacts to the people of Iraq. I would like to thank my colleagues at Customs and Border Protection and the Attorney General for the Eastern District of New York for making the reparations possible. The acting director of ICE added, "We will continue to work together to prevent the looting of antiquities and ensure that those who would attempt to profit from this crime are held accountable. This ceremony should serve as a powerful reminder that nobody is above the law." Now, we really wanted to include that last little statement where he said nobody is above the law, because it seems like the owners of Hobby Lobby are like a little bit above the law. Because when the acting director of ICE is saying that these are crimes and someone needs to be held accountable and no one's above the law, except no one went to prison for, like, they didn't go to prison for that. Like, what? They were simply just told to, like, okay, we'll give it back. And then they were given a little financial flick on the forehead, and that's it. Let's compare this to the story of Alvin Kennard, who in 1984 was sentenced to life without parole for robbing a bakery at knife point and stealing $50.75. The theft, which happened to be his fourth offense, meant that due to the law created by the Habitual Felony Offender Act, the judge, quote, had to sentence him to life in prison. His previous charges of burglary and larceny were all nonviolent felonies committed in 1979. Well, thank goodness the law has since changed, as they do, and Alvin was actually released in 2019. He served 36 years. Like, that's crazy. What are we doing? What are we doing here? But like I said, let's compare these two. So a multi-billion-dollar company, a family, whatever, but it's the company, purchased illegally smuggled artifacts that were stolen in another country, and said money goes to terrorist organizations and, dubious folks. They also file false paperwork to try to hide what they're bringing over, all for the purpose of displaying them in their Museum of the Bible, where they try to convince people that the Bible, or the stories in it, are real. Versus a man who committed 2 nonviolent acts that led to him being charged with 4 felonies and life in prison without the possibility of parole. Steal $50 from a grocery store as a black man. Life in prison. Straight to prison, just straight there. Yeah, straight to prison. Send millions of dollars to terrorist organizations so that you can illegally import stolen artifacts. As an affluent white couple, give those goods back, and here's a little fine for you. That's obviously not equal treatment. Obviously, they are above the law because they are billionaires and they are quite influential in the political landscape of today, which is gross. Gross. It's gross. I don't care what you say. It's gross. I know some people, whenever we talk about cults and unethical whatever, they'll be like, why do you have to bring politics into it? I don't usually, but hey, these people suck, and this has to do with this, okay? So we know that they have absolutely no problem supporting sex offenders, multiple of them, people who groom young women, liars, cheaters, people who evade the law, because, hey, money. And just, breaking the law in general. Because again, money and Jesus. But guess what else they don't give a shit about? If you guessed equality and women's rights, you were right. I will never understand why some people get so worked up about things that have quite literally nothing to do with them. Oh, watch out, I used the word them. Y'all really do. I say y'all, sorry. I'm like literally yelling at you and you're like, ma'am, I watch your videos. I'm not one of the crazies. But I will never understand when people, especially people this influential, unfortunately, get so obsessed with other people's sexualities, what they do behind closed doors, consensually, all that, and what people like to call themselves or what they like to wear, or, you know, just having generally the right to your own body. Why are you so obsessed with other people? What are you doing? For someone claiming to not be gay, you sure are obsessed with the gays and what they do. A little bit weird. As Trixie Mattel says, being gay isn't hard. The crazy straights make it hard. Hobby Lobby spent millions of dollars in court fighting against their own employees who wanted birth control to be covered under their Hobby Lobby employee insurance coverage. Per Hobby Lobby's defense, the company's owners believed that their religious freedoms were being infringed upon. And like we said at the beginning of this video, that lawsuit made it all the way up to the Supreme Court. And per the Planned Parenthood Action Fund, the court ruled against birth control access in a 5-4 decision, with the majority of justices saying that Hobby Lobby and other closely held corporations could deny birth control coverage to their employees. The ruling set a new precedent. For the first time, the Supreme Court allowed the commercial, profit-making world to deny people access to basic healthcare, like birth control, because of their religious beliefs. In the past, said Ruth Bader Ginsburg in her dissent, the Supreme Court only allowed such exemptions to individual people, not businesses. Justice Ginsburg noted that the ruling opened a door to the denial of other kinds of healthcare as well as employees' other rights based on their boss's beliefs, something that's already playing out. That's so wild. How are you going to say that you're infringing on my rights by doing something that literally only affects you? What? Also, hey, not everyone gets on birth control just because they don't want to get pregnant. Can also, you know, help with debilitating periods and really heavy periods and other too, buddy, okay? Lack of education here from grown humans is wild. Now, luckily, Hobby Lobby employees and all other individuals who were impacted by this weren't left high and dry. The aftermath of Burwell versus Hobby Lobby. The Obama administration quickly swept in to close the loophole that SCOTUS created in the Hobby Lobby birth control case. In response to this decision, the Obama administration extended the birth control accommodation that was originally provided only to religiously affiliated nonprofits. In particular, the accommodation was extended to closely held for-profit entities such as Hobby Lobby. Although Hobby Lobby-like companies can refuse to cover birth control in their health plans, health insurance companies must directly provide birth control at no cost to employees. So what's the takeaway? Workers shouldn't have to get their boss's permission for birth control coverage. It's that simple. Yeah, that's wild. Like why would your boss be involved in your like what medications you're taking? I don't know. To me, that makes no sense. Like I understand if it's an insurance that's provided by your employer, but like I've never talked to we have it through my husband's employer. I've never talked to my husband's employer about our insurance. I'd always just go straight to the insurance company. Now, women having access to birth control or just to, you know, reproductive health care in general is a worldwide issue. And it is having major consequences on women's health, women's rights, women's happiness, and much more. Now let's dive into this a little bit further by reading the highlights from an Anna Bernstein, MPH, and Kelly M. Jones, PhD's highly insightful paper titled The Economic Effects of Contraceptive Access, a Review of the Evidence. This article will be linked in my sources in the description box below. I promise I'll try to remember to link my sources, and I highly recommend that you read it in its entirety after watching this video. Now, the research reviewed in this report explored the ways that access to contraceptive affected women's economic outcomes in the following ways. Educational attainment. Young women's access to the pill improved higher education rates. Women gained access to the pill through both laws that legalized access to contraceptive for younger unmarried women and laws that lowered the minimum age for marriage. Since married young women were legally able to access the pill before unmarried women. Women both enrolled in and graduated from college in greater numbers due to contraceptive access. And then labor force participation. Access to the pill has allowed women to delay childbirth and increase their human capital investment in education and their careers. Pill access contributed to a substantial increase in the proportion of women in the workforce and the number of hours worked by women. Career outcomes. In the 1970s, women began making up higher proportions of individuals with careers in professional fields such as medicine and law. Among college-educated women, some of these increases can be attributed to the access of contraceptive pills. In particular, women from more selective colleges may have experienced greater labor market benefits from the pill. Earnings. Access to contraceptive translated into lower wages for women in their 20s as women were able to pursue more education before entering the labor force. Women's wages then grew more rapidly than women without access to birth control, resulting in substantially higher earnings by their 30s or 40s. Having access to contraceptive by age 20 reduced the probability that a woman would live in poverty. Contraceptive access likely impacted women's expectations for the future or their sense of empowerment being more broadly defined, which may have contributed to a reduction in poverty. Effects on the next generation. As legalization of contraceptive allowed more highly educated women to delay childbearing, the resulting cohort of birth was more likely to live in poverty in short term, as fewer births were born to non-poor women. Legal changes to contraceptive access resulted in fertility delays rather than reductions for more highly educated women. As births were retimed, longer run effects show more children were born to households with more highly educated mothers, and children were less likely to live in poverty. In contrast, access to federally funded family planning programs result in fewer children in both the short and long run. Economic effects of family planning programs on the next generation extended to their adulthood, with a substantial reduction in the number living in poverty as adults. Now, I'm personally not seeing any negatives there. So why wouldn't Hobby Lobby's owners want their employees to have access to birth control? Or rather, why would they not want to pay for it or offer it? Why are they so interested in having a say in that, rather, or trying to control that? It's simple. Conservative Christian men, especially in this sub niche of conservative Christian people, they want to be in control of women's bodies and furthermore, their rights and their lives. Because how dare you try to make a medical choice on your own that doesn't affect anybody else? How dare you try to do that? You're just a little woman. You're just a little girl. I'm just a baby. You can't. No, healthcare? Who's that? You don't know her.
And so the kinds of things that we're going to see in addition to legislation like this is we'll see legislation that says employers don't have to cover certain kinds of birth control that they think are abortions. And there's precedent for that. Look up the Hobby Lobby case in the Supreme Court. They'll say employers don't have to cover it. They'll say that pharmacists don't have to dispense emergency contraception to you because they think it causes abortion. And so they just like roll back, chip away, until, especially if you're in a rural area or you're young, whatever, that becomes much, much harder for you. So again, you don't need a law to ban birth control. You just need to make birth control impossible to get.
Now, since Roe v. Wade was overturned, I like to say rolled back, but overturned, conservative lawmakers have made it increasingly difficult, if not impossible, for women to have access to abortion, even if it's going to save their life. In Kentucky, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Oklahoma, abortions are illegal, even in the case of incest or rape. In South Carolina and Florida, the ban is at 6 weeks, and most people don't even know that they are pregnant until 6 weeks or after. So it might as well be a complete ban. And now women are being forced to carry out pregnancies that are potentially dangerous, depending on the situation, obviously, but not only dangerous to themselves medically or the child medically, but also mentally as well, and financially, and like life in general. And that's whether the pregnancy is wanted or not. Now, is there a law that impacts men's bodily autonomy, their lives, their rights in the same way? No. For the 5 of you men that watch my channel, I appreciate you. But y'all, if men were the ones who were carrying babies, you could literally get it at like a vending machine. You could Uber Eats an abortion. And I know I do tend to talk about women's rights quite a bit in my videos lately, but that is due to talking about these fundamentalist cult groups. Okay? So, hey, I'm sorry if it makes you uncomfortable. There are things that I agree with or don't agree with that make me uncomfortable no matter what, side I'm on there, but that's the context of this. If you are not interested in hearing about a high control group and what they implement and what they don't implement and the influence that they do or don't have, then what are you doing here? But anyways, no, you can't name a law that would affect men's lives and health in that way because it doesn't exist, because it's not there. So if you are pro forced birth, wouldn't you think with how much Hobby Lobby, and when I say Hobby Lobby, I mean the owners, the family, the controlling group, you would think that with how much they are all about save all the babies. Ma'am, it doesn't have a heartbeat yet. That's not a baby. No, it's not. With how obsessed they are with putting that over an already like living a woman, right? You would think that they would want to support the baby and the mother after birth, right? Per an article written by Dan Bobkoff, that is a very fun name to say, in Business Insider, when we asked him, David Green, CEO of Hobby Lobby, whether Hobby Lobby offers parental leave, he was stumped. I don't think so, Green said. We offer a lot of things. Turns out Hobby Lobby does not have a dedicated paternal leave plan. And that's not surprising. Paid paternal leave is already a rarity in the US, and it's even harder to find in the retail sector. Now, some people might say, oh, well, Hobby Lobby's a private business. They can do whatever they want. Then don't work for a Christian company, blah, blah, whatever, right? And of course, yes, two things can be true at once. A billion things can be true at once. Yes, they are a private entity, and they can make decisions for their company the way they see fit. However, the government should also pass laws that maternity and paternity leave is mandatory. For instance, let's see how multiple random people in the US.
You know how many weeks of paid family leave
are federally mandated in the US?
I think it's 15.
I want to say 11.
6.
FMLA. I should know this.
6. 2 weeks.
0.
0.
None.
0.
0 in the US?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So in the United States, we're only guaranteed 12 weeks of unpaid family leave through the FMLA, but that doesn't cover all workers, and obviously not everyone can afford to take unpaid time off.
I took family leave with her and my new baby, and I wish everyone was able to do it.
Norway went from 12 weeks of unpaid family leave to 16 weeks of paid family leave. Mothers' health markers improved a lot.
We're one of 6 countries in the whole world that doesn't mandate any amount of paid family leave. We just have unpaid family leave.
Awesome. That tracks.
And now let's compare that to maternity leave and how new mothers, new families, and parents are treated in other countries.
Are you about to have a baby, or are you currently on maternity leave, or know someone in one of these situations? You need to make sure you know your maternity rights. First things first, the most important one. Everyone is entitled to 52 weeks maternity leave, starting from day one if you're an employee. You may also be eligible for maternity pay. This could be statutory maternity pay, maternity allowance, or contractual maternity pay from your employer. While you're currently pregnant in the workplace, you need to make sure you get time off for antenatal care, and this should be full pay as well. You also have additional protection in the workplace, so they need to make sure they're doing a thorough health and safety risk assessment for you at the workplace. And finally, when you actually do return from maternity leave, you should be returning to your job or a job with equivalent pay, depending on how long you've been off for.
So how does this tie into Hobby Lobby? You might be like, Chelsea, I need you to get off your women's rights and paternity leave soapbox, please. I will never, because if there's one thing about me, I can't let it go. You know that if you watch my podcast, Here for the Clout with Cece Suarez and Sherilyn Dale. You should totally watch it. It's linked down below. So how does all this tie into Hobby Lobby? Boy, I'll tell ya. The owners of Hobby Lobby donate millions of dollars to evangelical, ultra-conservative political campaigns and politicians that support their religious agenda, which is centered around upholding patriarchy and taking away the rights of women and the LGBTQ plus community and people of color. In conclusion, Hobby Lobby and their owners, David and Barbara Green, are helping to implement negative policies regarding human rights for thousands of employees who work for their multi-million or even multi-billion dollar companies and entities that they have under them. Now, we've talked about smuggling artifacts, denying birth control to their employees. We've talked about being a part of and heavily funding the IBLP cult and the Quiverfull movement, and then also completely disregarding lockdown requirements during the beginning of the pandemic and throughout the pandemic as well. But all of that is actually not why I wanted to make this video about the Hobby Lobby family. Now, I don't know about you guys, but one of the only reasons I ever watch the Super Bowl or really any big type of event like that is on TV is because of the commercials, the marketing campaigns, the possible memes that'll come out of it, but mainly the commercials. I don't really care about sports. I don't really care about football. Listen, the Bucks could be playing and I'll watch it, but I'm going to treat the actual game as the commercials, and that's like my bathroom break and my snack breaks and things like that. I've always had that mindset, and listen here, you can guarantee that one thing that's going to make me cry is probably going to be like a Cheerios commercial or a Campbell's soup commercial. I'm most likely going to cry during every commercial break. At least one commercial is going to make me cry. And that's fine. There are ones that I find completely unfunny. There are ones that I really love. You know, some of my favorite famous people are in them. But a few years ago, there was actually a commercial that I really liked. It seemed approachable. It seemed relatable. And then I realized, oh, I've just been bamboozled. They got me. Now, you might not remember, but let me refresh your memory. And hey, you might since then have seen these commercials more and more because they have been pushing this campaign, in my opinion, a good bit. Now, this is from the organization He Gets Us. And he, capital He, meaning Jesus, Jesus, Emmanuel, whatever you want to call him. And basically, this is showing people who are going through the ups and downs of life, people who are more rough around the edges, and really just anybody. Now, they have a lot of online campaigns as well, and it'll show, for instance, this one, which is one of my favorites, of a gay man sitting on a bench, I believe at the beach or at a park or something, and he's taken off his rollerblades, and a lawyer or someone who it seems as though it's trying to be depicted as they're in, different not only social classes, but financial classes, and that person is washing the guy's feet. I just think that one's hilarious because the guy's roller skates are next to him and he's wearing short shorts. It's what are y'all doing? Bet you won't have Trixie Mattel in your next one. How about that, huh? So anyways, one of the things that I have always said, especially when it comes to these types of fundamentalist Christian-based cults, is really just how hypocritical, hateful, obnoxious they are, especially because the person or figure that they are modeling their religion after, Jesus, was the type of person, according to scripture, who would have been at the Pride Parade. Jesus would have been at the Pride Parade all cheeked up, and he would have been friends with sex workers and the homosexuals. That's apparently just the type of guy he was. A friend to all. Well, not really, but because a friend to all is a friend to none, as one of my very good friends says. But the point is that there truly seems to be no hate like Christian love. Now, funnily enough, this isn't the only cult or religion that has been campaigning and advertising during very big and expensive time slots on, huge viewership nights, like the Super Bowl or the Grammys or anything like that. Scientology also spends a lot of money on their ad campaigns for these specific showtimes, and it's wild. I'm pretty sure during one of the last Super Bowls or Grammys, I think it was one of the last Super Bowls, maybe it wasn't the last one, maybe it was only one before, but they had 2 commercials. That's wild. What are y'all doing? Y'all want to know where all the money goes? That right there. That's where it goes. Truly crazy. But let's get a little bit further into these commercials. The He Gets Us commercials are funded by a group of anonymous donors who describe themselves as a diverse group of individuals passionate about Jesus. These donors reportedly include wealthy Christian families and individuals, some connected to businesses like Hobby Lobby. The campaign is part of an initiative to promote Christianity in a modern, approachable way and is overseen by the Servant Foundation, also known as the Signatory, a Kansas-based Christian nonprofit. The campaign has drawn significant attention due to its high production quality and the cost of the ad placements, including during major events like the Super Bowl. The ad aims to portray Jesus as relatable and understanding of modern struggles, focusing on themes like love, compassion, and social justice. Now, although it seems like they have done some work to keep the majority of these donors of this He Gets Us campaign anonymous, it's all over the interweb, so I don't know. They clearly haven't done a good job of that. But let's go over some of these major donors. Obviously, we know that the owners, the Greens of Hobby Lobby, are a huge donor to this campaign. The Servant Foundation, also known as the Signatory, is governed by a board of directors made up of individuals with diverse backgrounds in business and ministry. As of the latest available information, the board includes Gary Nagel, who is the chairman and founder of the Wealth Management Group of Kansas City, Mark Bainbridge, and he's the vice chairman, and he is the retired general manager of Ban Courier. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but oh well. And then Mark Hammett, he's the treasurer, and he's the first vice president of fixed income sales at Commerce Bank. And then we have Jim Wright. He's a board member and retired CEO and executive chairman of Tractor Supply Company, so he's extremely wealthy. And then we have Keith Phillips. He's a board member and the managing director and financial advisor for Wiley Brothers. And then we have Steve French, president and CEO and former founder and CEO of Quovent. Again, I'm probably pronouncing that one wrong as well, but oh well. Per an article on relevantmagazine.com titled, "What's the Deal with Those He Gets Us ads?" He Gets Us is a new series of ads rolling out in what may be Christianity's biggest marketing campaign of all time. Like any good campaign, the message came after months of market research and testing. Haven President, which is the marketing group that He Gets Us used, Jason Vanderground says that he and his team found that while many people remain unconvinced about the benefits of Christianity, they still like Jesus. He's hoping these ads can reflect the relevance of what Jesus said and how he lived for modern viewers. So basically that interview with Relevant Magazine is partnered with He Gets Us, which is annoying, but it was one of the only interviews that I saw with the head of the marketing campaign. And so I thought that that obviously was, no pun intended, but relevant. And it basically goes on to say that what they're trying to do is, like it said, make Jesus more approachable, relatable, all that. And like I said before, he'd be at the Pride Parade, he'd be at whatever. And they're attempting to make Jesus or Christianity more appealing. But the thing that's very interesting about this is that not only has the Hobby Lobby family, the Greens, the people who are primarily reportedly funding this campaign, and the Servant Foundation, both of those separate entities, meaning like that family and the Servant Foundation or the Signatory, whatever you want to call it, have both donated so much money to organizations that are very clearly anti-choice, anti-women's rights when you get down to it, and then even more so, anti-LGBTQ+. So isn't that extremely hypocritical? It really does just give the same kind of vibe of you're being pitched a making money from home opportunity, a multi-level marketing job, whatever job, volunteer position. And you're sold this dream, you're sold time freedom, so much money, financial freedom, be your own boss, blah, 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 all of that BS, right? And then you actually get into it and it's like, oh, I'm not going to make money. I am in a cult. I am being brainwashed. I am being manipulated. There's fear mongering. There's faith manipulation. There's double speak. There's all these logical fallacies. So what you're being pitched is not what the reality is of what these people reportedly believe. There's no way that you could believe that it's okay, Jesus is friends with all these people, and yeah, we would love for gay people to love Jesus without wanting to completely change them. When you're a fundamentalist, that's not how that works. I personally think that now knowing who is behind these campaigns, the families, the fundamentalists that are behind these campaigns, I really do feel like it is even more predatory than the first time I even heard about them, which, like I said before, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, I like that. But that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to get to people who are like, oh yeah, Jesus is cool. Like, Jesus is my that's my dude, you know? Again, he'd be all cheeked up at the Pride Parade, washing your feet, right? He's a cool guy. But it's quite interesting that even in this article with the marketing campaign guy, how he's saying that they want to really separate themselves from like the bad Christians and the fundamentalists and the people who, you know, are hateful and not open-minded and not compassionate and don't have any empathy or understanding. But yet the people who are funding this, and again, I don't know the people who are funding it specifically. I don't know them personally. However, where they are putting their money and what they are doing specifically screams fundamentalist. And I feel like they've shown us that they are fundamentalists, especially supporting IBLP, Quiverfull movement, and taking it all the way to the Supreme Court so that you don't have to give your employees birth control, or rather, don't have to pay for an insurance plan that would cover their birth control. Let me phrase that correctly. Now, hey, if you still want to shop at Hobby Lobby, that's fine. That's okay, girl. Listen, I might be a little bit gay. I say a little bit, like 60%. But I still love me some Chick-fil-A. Still love me some homophobic chicken, okay? It's delicious. And that's all right. So let's not try to be the ethics police here. I mean, I know it's my entire channel, but I do just want to say that because I know there are a lot of people who, you know, experience this cognitive dissonance and are kind of like fighting with themselves internally of, oh, well, I don't want to support your channel because maybe, you know, a sponsor you have on your channel, or maybe because you used to be sponsored by Scentbird or something like that, right? You know, oh, you support fast fashion, or you know, do this, or, you know, you shop through Amazon. Girl, you know how many Amazon boxes show up at my house every day? But it's like, all right, are you typing that on, you know, an iPhone? Because guess what? The factory where your phone is made is like a horrible place with horrible working conditions, reportedly. Not trying to get sued by Apple or like China. So if we look at things hard enough, we could find something ethically and morally wrong with literally everything that we do. And that is a point that I do try to make. Obviously, people have, you know, different values and, you know, what they can do, or, you know, where they do draw the line and whatever. But unless you're living like off the grid and making your own clothes and eating dirt, like there's no way to be like 100% ethical with what you are consuming every single second of every single day. So just keep that in mind as well. If there was a Hobby Lobby right down the street from me, listen, I probably would go there sometimes if like Michael's didn't have what I needed, or if I couldn't get it on Amazon fast enough, right? So it's going to be okay. But I just wanted to put that out there because these commercials are insane, and I needed to be able to talk about it because holy crap, this is, in my opinion, a cult. And these commercials are being funded by, in my opinion, again, a cult. And it's the Greens, the fundamentalists, the Quiverfull people, the IBLP of it all. And it's just wild that they're putting these things out here to attempt to look more not culty and not crazy. And it's giving Scientology. It's the same thing that they do. They try to act like they are giving all these job opportunities and like they helped people with, like they helped with 9/11, which no, they didn't. They try to say that they helped to clean up after the two back-to-back devastating hurricanes that we had here in the Bay Area because they like own almost all of downtown Clearwater. No, they didn't. They've been called out so much lately because they keep saying that they've been helping so much, and no, they're not. They can say they have all day long. I cannot stand them. They're so weird and annoying. And they just buy up properties and then they're all empty, and it's so strange. It is so weird. I need to do a bigger video and like investigation on them. Investigation? Who are you, Chelsea? Calm down. Because they're just the worst. I've been kicked off their property more than once. It's a good time. It's nothing says a fun Sunday like getting kicked off the Scientologist property. The Quiverfull movement is a conservative Christian ideology that emphasizes large families and strict adherence to traditional gender roles. The name Quiverfull comes from Psalm 127:3-5 in the Bible, which describes children as a heritage from the Lord and likens them to arrows in a warrior's quiver, suggesting that having as many children as possible is a blessing and a means to advance God's kingdom. Some of the key beliefs and practices of the Quiverfull movement is rejecting contraceptive Followers of the Quiverfull movement believe that using birth control interferes with God's will for family size. They advocate for, quote, letting God decide how many children a family should have, resulting in extremely large families. They also have an emphasis on patriarchy, and they promote traditional gender roles where men are seen as the spiritual and practical heads of the household, and women are responsible for childbearing and homemaking. Many of these families homeschool, often using religious curriculum designed to instill biblical principles and prepare children to continue the movement's values. They also align with dominion theology, which holds that Christians should, quote, take dominion over society and influence culture, government, and education in line with biblical teachings, which obviously goes completely against the separation of church and state, which is what our country was founded on. Our country, meaning the US, because that's where I am. And then, of course, the movement opposes modern feminist ideals, particularly the notion of women pursuing careers or delaying childbirth in favor of personal ambitions. The Quiverfull movement gained attention in the 1980s, inspired by Christian books such as The Way Home, Beyond Feminism, Back to Reality by Mary Pride, who sounds like a huge hemorrhoid. In this book, argued against using birth control and promoted large families as a counterculture response to secular society. Now, obviously, critics argue that the movement's restrictions on women's autonomy and pressuring them to prioritize childbearing over personal aspirations and health conditions is obviously not good. And then, of course, there are child welfare concerns as well, regarding the physical, emotional, and financial strain of raising many children, particularly in families that lack resources or adequate support systems. The strict patriarchal structure has been criticized for fostering environments where abuse can occur with limited accountability or recourse for many women and children. And this is actually something that we went over in our Girl Defined deep dive that we did earlier in the year, where I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing Michael Mershon, who is the oldest sibling of the Girl Defined sisters. And he is absolutely amazing and just such a great human, and has been doing such a great job exposing this type of movement and lifestyle and these types of families. And he exposed a lot of these valid criticisms and his experiences with this when he was growing up. And now, like we said before, there are high-profile families associated with Quiverfull values, such as the Duggars from 19 Kids and Counting, the horrible TLC show. You know, TLC stands for the Learning Channel. Girl, what are we learning? What's going on here? And they've brought attention and a lot of scrutiny, obviously, to that. And then, of course, there are so many other families like this as well, such as the Baird Mershon family, the Girl Defined one. And then there's the Platt family as well, also has their own TLC show. One of my favorite documentaries is one from Netflix, and it's called Our Father, and it aired about 2 years ago, I believe in 2022. And it exposes the retired fertility doctor, Dr. Donald Klein. And between 1979 and 1986, Dr. Klein artificially inseminated his female patients with his own sperm instead of using that of their donors, of course, like, you know, he's supposed to. And he did that without their permission, consent, knowledge, nothing. And he's believed to have fathered over 94 children, and mostly all of them were from like the surrounding area that he lived. So as you can imagine, that's pretty horrible. And, you know, if you're sleeping with your siblings, you're going to have some issues there, right? And a lot of these people walking past each other on the street in this area didn't even know that they were related because of, you know, this guy pulling an okie doke on everybody. And some of Dr. Klein's children who appeared throughout the Our Father documentary suspected that he may have been a member of the Quiverfull movement. And they do think that his potential association with this movement may have explained why he committed the acts or crimes, since that is what they are, that he did. Also, while doing research on the Quiverfull movement and the families that have been a part of it publicly, I did come across this article from economichardship.org, and I will have it linked in my sources down below. But there's an article in here from 2019 written by Artemis Stardust, if that is a government name. Dear God, that's amazing. And it's titled, My Family Was on a TLC Reality Show. Here's the Dark Secret That Never Aired. And I'm just going to read a few snippets from this because I do truly think it is absolutely insane. In 2007, when I was 14, I appeared on Kids by the Dozen, a reality show that aired on The Learning Channel. Here we go again, and featured my family and other large families like mine. Our part of the series was shot over 9 days, just long and short enough to keep up appearances as one big happy family. My father controlled both my education and my occupation. A Gen X middle-class man, he first carved a place in my small world by controlling the uterus of my mother, Wendy, who gave birth to me, and my 15 siblings. The cult-like beliefs that shaped my upbringing belong to what is known as the Quiverfull movement. It is based on Psalm 127, which reads, "Children are a heritage of the Lord, and fruit of the womb is his reward. Happy is the man who has his quiver full of them." The metaphor of a quiver of arrows defines children as weapons to be used to win the world for Christian conservative values. My parents believed that God created the universe in 6 days about 6,000 years ago. Good Lord, read a book. And they refused to have my mother give birth in a hospital or to vaccinate me or my siblings. I was homeschooled from pre-K through high school, and my curriculum touched briefly on science as a subject that merely magnifies the hard work of God. While for history, I was taught that the divine providence had bestowed America to Christ's faithful. And then it goes on to say that they wore a purity ring that they received from their parents when they turned 16 years old. And obviously they were to remain a virgin so that their dad could hand over a pure daughter to the future husband, that Democrats wanted to kill innocent babies waiting to be born in their mother's wombs. The author goes on to say that in 2013, her parents kicked out her and her little sister, Lydia. She was 22 and Lydia was 19, which of course is old enough to, live on your own, but they had no cars, no savings, and nowhere to go. And they were never told, just like their older sisters, why they were kicked out. She goes on to say that her dad then logged into his bank account, which was directly linked to the kids' personal bank accounts, and transferred hundreds of dollars into his own account for imaginary debts that he claimed that they owed them. And he said that he was going to start charging them rent effective immediately, $500 for each of the small bedrooms that they shared in a house full of 16 people. And she basically goes on to describe how she sank into depression and how she wasn't able to be successful in school, academically, professionally, anything like that, because she was homeschooled and it was poor homeschooling. And that basically this type of upbringing did not set her up for success as an adult. Now, while Barbara and David Green only have 2 children themselves, their family is quite large. And it has not been confirmed that they are necessarily part of the Quiverfull movement. Then again, there aren't many families out there who do practice this that would be open about, claiming that. So personally, I am of the opinion, and it's just my opinion, I could be wrong, that they are a part of the Quiverfull movement. And even if they say that they are not, the fact is that they have donated millions upon millions of dollars to IBLP and to the founder, Bill Gothard, as well. And then also to other very conservative, fundamentalist Christian organizations, including UVision, One Hope, Every Home for Christ, Oral Roberts University, Museum of the Bible, which they own, Alliance Defending Freedom, which is extremely anti-gay, and then also Liberty University. If you have any other random things you want me to make videos on that are maybe a little bit culty, a little bit spicy, a little bit weird, a rabbit hole, whatever you want, please do leave it in the comments down below or email me. Y'all have been doing amazing at emailing lately with just the, dear God, the rabbit holes that y'all send me down. Or if you want to tag me in a Reddit post or something, that would be helpful. This will be one of my last videos of 2024. Not me looking up at my calendar to see what year it is, but I appreciate you so much. And I really, really, really appreciate you not only, watching this video, but supporting my channel, supporting the podcast as well. Y'all have been amazing with the support of the podcast. I am so excited and just so proud of it. That is the Here for the Clout podcast, hosted by myself and Sherilyn Dale. She's my co-host. She's amazing. And I'm just so thankful for y'all. My goal eventually is to be able to put up maybe 4 videos a month on my channel and have them be more just a little bit deeper, like these types of videos, and and more research based, and still funny and have skits and stuff like that if it works out in them, but then focusing more on the podcast and hoping to post 2 episodes a week on YouTube, and then still having all the crazy and just a plethora of content that we put on Patreon. Our Patreon is fed they are fed. It is crazy. So like I said, hopefully I put up another video by the end of this month, and I appreciate you. Stay spicy. If you are subscribed, your butt looks so good. If you're not subscribed, you probably don't have a good butt, and that's really embarrassing. But the good news is all you have to do is subscribe and your butt will look so good. So I'll see you in my next video, or maybe I'll see you next year. But anyways, I will see you later. Goodbye.